Hi, welcome to Entertainment Insider. I'm Gene Triplett, entertainment editor for the Oklahoman and NewsOK.com. I'm here today with George Lang and Brandon McDonald, and we're here to talk about some of the hot topics in entertainment this week. And we're going to start off just talking about, in this age of paparazzi and in the wake of Natasha Richardson's death, what do you think the standard should be for covering the deaths of entertainers? George?
Well, when this was going on last week, and you had Liam Neeson, her husband, trying to settle her affairs and dealing with the hospital and all of these things, you had this crush of paparazzi and a lot of cameras going off and all this stuff, and it just seemed kind of antithetical to the way these people have lived their lives. They're private people. They're not the kind of people who have this sort of quid pro quo agreement with the paparazzi that I'll scratch your back, you shave mine kind of deal. Where and it didn't seem right. And I think that for these people, I don't think that necessarily being a movie star necessarily equates with being a public person. If you live your life a certain way, I think that you should be accorded a certain respect and distance from the people who are taking pictures for a living.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, I would agree with that. I don't think that there's any way that Natasha Richardson would have avoided being somewhat in the spotlight, even if she hadn't been an actress. I mean, she was the daughter of a director, Tony Richardson, and Vanessa Redgrave. I mean, these are very famous people in the entertainment industry. So even if she hadn't been an actress, even if she hadn't married an actor, she still would have been somebody in the public eye, but she didn't live that way. She didn't live out in the open in a very public way. I mean, they lived a relatively quiet, out of the spotlight kind of life. And so I think that in that case, it's sort of like, what's good for the goose. I mean, there should be some dignity and respect afforded these people, a level of privacy, because they lived privately.
Absolutely.
So, and you can contrast that with somebody like the British reality TV star Jade Goody, who died on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Well, she lived her life very out in the open. I mean, she was on reality TV. That's how she became famous. She sold the rights to most of her last days, including her wedding, to the British television. So somebody like that is trying to be in the spotlight. Yeah. So if the paparazzi swarm her funeral, that's the way she lived. But I think that Natasha Richardson deserved a little quieter of a passing.
The Jade Goody thing is crass and vaguely apocalyptic. This whole idea of selling your life and your death. But that was part of the deal. That's the way she wanted it. So that's fine. Natasha Richardson didn't want that kind of thing.
Yeah. I agree. But it's always big news when a high-profile entertainer dies, especially one that's relatively young, and it's under sudden and tragic circumstances. Right. People love their stars. They want to know what happened and how, and it is news. But coverage, I think, should be limited to, as far as witnessing people or bothering people. Witnesses, colleagues, and friends who are willing to talk.
Yes.
While the privacy and the feelings of the family should, be given utmost consideration, I think, and respect. Yes. And I just think funerals and memorial services should be off limits altogether. Mm-hmm. Well, Kelly Clarkson's new disc, All I Ever Wanted, knocked U2's No Line on the Horizon out of the top spot on the Billboard album charts this past week, in U2's second week of release. And what does this say about U2's current commercial viability or the state of the industry in general?
Well, I mean, I think it says a couple of things. First of all, it says that Kelly Clarkson was able to bounce back from My December, which was her 2007 album that really didn't do that well. It was sort of a dark gothic kind of reaction to the way that she's been, or she was treated by her record company, and specifically Clive Davis. They wanted her to churn out some more hits, and she wanted to go a little darker and a little more personal. Well, she came back and made a much brighter album, and it helps that she has some pretty great Oklahoma City talent on a thing. Damian Aranda and Sam Waters, two Oklahoma City guys, worked on a couple of the songs, including the title track, and so it's a pretty strong album, one that her fans wanted from her. So that's going to work obviously to her advantage. But then also there's the fact that U2, you can't coast anymore. There was a time not that long ago when stars could put out an album and it was guaranteed to be a hit. Now, I think that the general consensus on No Line on the Horizon, and certainly my opinion, is that it is a coast job. It might be the first time they've ever coasted in their career, and they did it this time. And while it's certainly not resulting in bad sales, it's resulting in the kind of sales that are fairly lukewarm for a band of that stature. So it just shows that you've got to put out the effort. People can smell it when you're not putting 100% in there.
I think it just kind of, a lot of the industry these days is so much just easy come, easy go. I mean, there's a new song on the top of the charts every week. There's a new album at the top of the charts every week. And George is right. You can't get away with just coasting anymore because there's a lot of material out there and not very many people buying that much anymore. So, you can't just sort of let it slide. I don't think that that U2 is the force that they used to be. I also agree that I haven't heard Kelly's album, but I've heard the songs that the Aranda put out, and those are great songs. And like I said, clearly U2 isn't the force that they were back, say at the Joshua Tree when they came out, which there's a song from that album playing somewhere in the world every 30 minutes for the rest of our lives.
Right,
exactly.
So,
Yeah, I'm not a Kelly Clarkson fan anyway. I'm still a huge U2 fan.
Yeah.
I think that U2 was making kind of a valiant effort to forge ahead, maybe find a new sound this time out. I don't necessarily think that they were coasting. I think this was just kind of a forgettable misfire, to coin a phrase. Great expectations drove it up the charts its first week out, but after people were exposed to that clunky first single, Get Your Boots On,
yeah.
And some of the more sleep-inducing numbers like White as Snow and Cedars of Lebanon, the music buyers kind of quickly moved on to the next big thing. I'm not sure that this says anything about the state of the industry, just the state of U2's creativity at this point, which kind of registers low at the moment.
It's a shame. I'd like to. I hope they bounce back from it. Maybe you're right. There's a lot of people who didn't like their '97 album Pop,
right,
as an example. It didn't resonate well with people, and so it's certainly not a band you want to count out.
There's been a minor uproar that's broken out at UCLA over the fact that James Franco has been selected as the commencement speaker this year. Does taking a full load of classes while having a movie career merit such an honor, or should it go to someone with a little more life experience?
What do you think, Brandy?
I think this is a big deal out of kind of nothing. Honestly, when you're at your college commencement, do you remember who the speaker was? Because I don't remember if we even had one. I was so ready to get, on my way.
Right.
I don't think that it's necessary that there has to be somebody with quote-unquote life experience. I'm assuming that means somebody older, come in to give the speech. I think if he's a fellow graduate and he's done so many things, by all rights, he was the guy who really kind of lost out the most at the Oscars this year. He was the one that deserved to be nominated that didn't get nominated. So this is a guy who's obviously got a quality career going, and he's a full-time student. He's one of your fellow graduates. I think it'd be kind of fun to hear what he had to say. I don't think that it has to be quite so staid and formal at a commencement.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And quite honestly, I had a hard time balancing my full-time job at the newspaper down at OU and taking classes, and I was clearly putting a lot more effort into the newspaper job. But then, and so I have to, if somebody did well carrying a full load and had a movie career, okay, more power to them. Sure, you could probably find somebody who had made great advances in medical research or in public policy or something like that to speak, but I tend to think of it like this is a school in Westwood, which is about 5 miles from the epicenter of the movie industry, and I would just look at what the local economy is in Los Angeles and do the math. It makes sense that that if you've got somebody who did well at school and is also doing well in the preeminent local industry, then that makes a whole lot of sense to me.
It does. You've got a good argument. I was going to disagree, but you may have convinced me. I just,
Talked
you
you
know,
out of it.
maybe I'm a kind of a traditionalist kind of guy, but I think a commencement speaker is supposed to be somebody who's gone on from their college education and done something with it and has enough life experience, you know, to offer a few nuggets, you know, of advice and wisdom to the current graduating class. But you're right. I mean, James
maybe
Franco
not.
is yeah, maybe not. So there you have it. Two different ways to look at that one.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this week's Entertainment Insider. Appreciate your joining us, and I hope you'll look in again next time. Thanks a lot.
Let's see it.